his culture war aspects of being the unwoke governor. He's proudly trumpeted that and saying, we're not going to go along with that political correctness that you see in a lot of these other blue states, California, New York, some of these other places that really get the lion's share of attention. Trump is a natural fit for that, and he's just put it and brought that about on steroids. And so I think we're going to see Florida kind of be the national model for the years to come.
Welcome to the Debrief, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the headlines they're covering this week and where the story's going next. I'm Jim Antle, and I'm joined today by magazine managing editor David Mark. David, you've written a piece looking at the strong Florida presence in the incoming Donald Trump White House. The Florida man has kind of become a meme over the last couple of years. Trump is a Florida transplant himself. Talk a little bit about some of the people who are going to be big figures in this new White House.
Right. It's really some of the biggest names in the soon-to-be president's adopted state of Florida, which he moved to right during the middle of his first White House term, even though he was living technically in the White House. He moved his official residence to Mar-a-Lago. Anyway, some of the choices are his Secretary of State designate, Marco Rubio, the current senator from Florida, Congressman Michael Waltz as National Security Advisor. There's Pam Bondi, the former Attorney General for the state of Florida, as U.S. Attorney General. There's former Congressman Dave Weldon to head the Centers for Disease and Control, which in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic actually is a pretty big deal, it's an agency we all got to know very well, and several others, some ambassador picks and whatnot. So it's really a kind of a flavor of Florida that we've seen under Florida Governor Ron DeSantis the last several years or so, being taken national for better if you're a Trump fan, for worse if not.
And then one of the people who's supposed to keep order in all of this is Susie Wilds, who's been a big player in Florida Republican politics for quite a long time.
Absolutely. Susie Wilds will be the first female White House chief of staff, which is notable in its own right. And yes, she is a prominent Florida political player. She's been a political consultant there. She was for Governor Ron DeSantis for a while. She was a lobbyist. She's got deep roots in Florida. Her father was actually former pro football player and broadcaster Pat Summerall, which is a sports fan. I just find that tidbit interesting. But she also is bringing in several people as kind of deputy chiefs of staff, some of their White House personnel levels, the kind of folks that are not necessarily household names, but make presidential administrations run.
And she got pretty positive reviews during the campaign for her role in spearheading Trump's 2024 campaign. Trump's past relationships with his White House chiefs of staff have generally not ended very well.
Right. He cycled through 4, I believe, during his first term, and we'll see how it goes. But she has generally kept it about as orderly as is humanly possible with Donald Trump, and he might say his unorthodox decision-making styles, sometimes spur of the moment. She was able to keep him relatively on message during that campaign. And also, I think most importantly, she managed a lot of the infighting among some of the staff. This is something that we saw during Trump's first term. It's a fact of life of all White Houses, Democratic and Republican. You have people with competing agendas. People are jockeying for power. They may want to run for office themselves, or mostly they want the president's ear. They want to get their ideas across. And you really have to keep them at bay, almost like fighting children if you're a dead mother of sorts or father. In this case, she's really able to keep some of it, lay down the law, even the hammer in certain cases, and keep the folks at bay. We'll see how that actually goes once in the White House, but she certainly commands respect on both sides of the aisle.
So Trump and Ron DeSantis have been political rivals a good bit for the last couple of years, but one thing that they have in common is both of them sort of push Florida as a national model of governance. And when Trump moved to Florida, the contrast that was attempted to be drawn was largely New York, where he lived. Now I think a lot of people want to do the contrast with California. Talk a little bit about Florida's centrality in the Republican mind right now.
Right. This is something that has been years in building. Florida has its natural attractions to begin with. The warm weather, the beaches, also the lack of state income tax, so your paychecks go a lot further. That's always been a draw down there. What DeSantis has tried to do as governor is really make it a lifestyle destination, not just for the rich and wealthy people who have second homes to go down there, but for cops, firefighters, union officials, people with middle-class salaries, or maybe even lower than that, who may want to move there, by really putting in place smaller government. This took place most prominently during the COVID-19 pandemic, but in other ways as well, to a certain degree, actually shrinking government programs and spending, which he has, but also kind of his culture war aspects of being the unwoke governor. He's proudly trumpeted that and saying, we're not going to go along with that political correctness that you see in a lot of these other blue states, California, New York, some of these other places that really get the lion's share of attention. Trump is a natural fit for that, and he's just brought that about on steroids. And so I think we're going to see Florida kind of be the national model for the years to come.
And now it's coming to D.C.
For better or worse, I think for a lot of people for the better, but we shall see how it... A lot of these things also can play out well in theory and practice. That's a whole other issue.
Absolutely. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
You can read David and the rest of our magazine team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.